Black Box Productions.
Oh, my mama. It's fixed though, sneaker. Yeah, I see what it is. We got a dead USB port. Oh, my mama. But look what I got. Puto gave me this, right? This supposed to be able to let me use this many USB ports. But it got this type of extension on it. Plugged it up. And it wasn't nothing going live, even though the lights had come on. But then it got this on the back. So I think I got to do something to get with that little white piece on there. Ridiculous, I don't know, but I'm gonna get it cracking because the computer only come with 2 USB slots, but I be wanting to utilize a few more anyway. But now we got a dead one, so we only working with one, so we gotta make some sense out of that one. But Cut don't even come through and tap in on my techno touchdown no more. Like I say, he got his own studio, so now the black box is super secondary to closed session, black days. But if you're trying to book your independent artist, local, you're looking for a good spot, quality spot to get a nice, comfortable session in, get a very good professional sound. Everything you heard me release since a lot of stuff through the years you probably wasn't aware of, but definitely everything you heard me release since 18 is all been done. Well, the majority, I won't say all, is because I've moved around a little bit, but the majority been right there, if not at closed sessions. Black days with Puto. Puto moved around with me and engineered my sessions elsewhere. So if you appreciate the quality of sound that I bring to the table, you definitely can tap in with Puto and reach that same exact level of quality. He on point. He's learned from the best. He has a lot of experience. He's traveled the world taking engineering courses from some of the best engineers that we've come across. So He has spent hours as a student, hours as an intern, and hours as a professional mixer, master, and engineer on my behalf and countless other artists. You'll be surprised at some of the people that's on his resume, including Neighborhood Nip, O3 Greedo, and other few others. I ain't finna try to go through the whole thing, but it's not just me. But we like to make that service. Also, if you have young people in the area that are interested in learning how to engineer, record, and just be fluent in the studio process, recording period, whether they're artists or on the other side of it, or want to be on the technical side. You know, even if you're an artist, it never hurts to know how to record because I remember being in the Blue Room, and many times beyond that, I learned in the Blue Room, but just benefiting from being able to record yourself. Let me tell you something, as an artist, there is very few scenarios you can imagine when it comes to comfort, like being in a studio all by yourself with all your equipment tweaked exactly to the specs that you prefer, and then you're in there creating all by yourself. I think outside of that, being compared to maybe matched with an engineer that can alleviate you with even the idea of recording, just whatever responsibility or stress or burden or belaboring that having to be the engineer could put on you. Having someone that can, sometimes I used to love to book like Quality Night Studios with the white engineers that are not going to try to engage you in extra conversation, and you bring your small crew that are only going, they know you're not, because when you're trying to be creative and you're on a clock, it's a thing. You're thinking about time, but you're trying to do your best, and a lot of time doing your best doesn't coincide with, if you're writing in the studio, coincide with rushing. So sometimes it's very, very distracting to have people who don't realize you really need to be in a mind frame of, I'm in here alone. And if I want to step outside of that, let me choose to engage you without it being offensive. Otherwise, you don't need to be there. So the only thing, if you can't really create that with multiple people, the next best thing is to be all by yourself, because you're not scared to mess up or do something wrong and catch yourself, and you start challenging yourself to go outside of your norm. And like EC, one of my most appreciated records these days is EC, even self-appreciated. I had the opportunity to be in studio all by myself in the black box. Can you turn that down just a little bit, please? In the black box by myself, came up on the beat by myself, wrote the lyrics because it right on the spot by myself. For those who haven't, I've told the story before, but just an interesting note since we on the subject, or I'm on the subject, or my mama, I had gotten to a point of coming out of hiatus back into the game, just trying to get creative and do some things. And I had got up to about, I believe at the time, 10 new records that I had recorded. And then got to, getting to the process of every day living, chilling, kicking it, moving around, listening to your new music, listening to it. And I had wanted to continue creating or building the new catalog. So I was like, I had made a commitment to myself, like, I'm going to put these songs up, not going to listen to them until I get a whole nother 10. So I told myself that for like a day or two, that I made up my mind that today is the day. And I put the music up. And the first session, the first night, I was in the studio by myself in the black box. Went to YouTube looking for beats. The EC beat, I found it. And that was the first beat I found. And I was in the studio that I wrote those first two verses the first night myself, recorded them. And I did the third verse the next day. But being in that studio by yourself, and it's easier now than ever. I don't know if people realize it's becoming obvious when you see a lot of these new young artists that are becoming stars and that are obviously popular, and then they like show videos of them recording, and you can see how simple the setup is. It's very versus others that kept more intact with the traditions of old. When you're trying to be big popular, you typically go big with the process. And even like Nipsey, he was very invested in a quality process while he was recording. And I watched him no matter what level he was in the game. Once he considered himself professional, one thing I admired about him is that he obtained a professional setup, that the main components he could take with him wherever he went, no matter where he was going to be getting down at. And to make sure upon one, a traditionally known as the $10,000 Sony, that thing that looked like that Glock mic that Eminem became famous rapping on, and then 50 Cent followed. Nipsey had that way before his status dictated that he should be able to afford it. He made sure he could have that. And a couple of other key components, and no matter where his setup was at, he had that there because he had found the level of his delivery and his sound that he appreciated, that he never wanted to ever find himself under. He never wanted to be subpar a certain level, and he realized it through certain components, and he made sure that they was always on deck, including the same exact engineer. Shout out to G. For the better of the last 15 years, I don't remember, and I couldn't imagine unless he was way displaced and G was unavailable based on a collaboration situation, just being out of town or something. I don't remember him having anybody record him. It's nothing like also having an engineer that knows exactly what you're trying to do, what you want to do, how the best you can be, and locking in with that. I remember working with E40 and time passing in between, getting files sent to one another. And when the delay was on his behalf, it was always because, I got a Grammy winning engineer. I don't record with anybody but him, and I can't get down until our schedules sync. So a lot of time the professionals, you would imagine how distinct Ludacris' sound has been over the years. He doesn't outsource much of his engineering either. And he started locked in with Dre, typically that would be the recording process for the majority of the content. You gotta realize it's not just being wild and sporadic and getting cracking any and everywhere. It's about finding a system that works and being able to reproduce it at your best. On my mama. What you know about Rollers, babe? Mac, rest in peace, my white boy partner Josh. On my mama. Not really knowing the exact story, but it's suspected that he passed as a result of a suicide or of maybe a Russian roulette type situation. but he was a young man with a promising future that didn't really appear to be dealing with any type of dark issues that would push him to that extent. And it just reminded me and reminds us that we got to constantly be aware that there are energies and situations people are dealing with on a constant basis that don't necessarily meet the eye, and they're not apparent, they're not obvious. And a lot of time we judge people by how healthy and happy they look. And some people is taking everything within them to remain that happy, and they not nowhere near as healthy mentally or emotionally as they may look physically. And we just think that A-okay, and we apply pressure on them that might not be necessarily due. That's why I want to sometimes dial it back, even on Kurtisha, knowing that he grew up, sexually confused based on things he was seeing from his parents do. You got to be careful how hard you go on those type of people, especially when they're constantly lashing out at others who seemingly are typically weaker than them or more vulnerable than them, and they seem so aggressive toward them. And then here you come, and they get tucking their tail and assuming a whole nother course of action. It's like, hey, how hard you want to push it? That's like just punching on somebody who don't fight back. I've never been that type of dude. On my mama, if I have to present any type of resistance or force or aggressiveness toward you, even if I'm first, it's only going to maintain if you reciprocate it. So to just keep harping on somebody who obviously don't want it, who can't take it, can't handle it, regardless of what all the cornballs might think is going on. You gotta just be careful. Oh, my.
Snakewood Nip Hustle. Big shout out to my nigga SPI, Spotter Low. I'm in the black box, had to come through, tap in, show love one time. Yeah, y'all make sure y'all subscribe. Stay tuned.